Here's George to the pizza party. Alright. Pizza parties. We all love pizza. George was a good little monkey and always been very curious. Today, he wasn't very curious. He was excited. So excited, in fact, that he was turning flips and standing on his head. George got to the party with the perfect time. Hi, George, called out the little girl, but oh, what was all this? The children were wearing puffy, white, chafed hats and checkered aprons. George got on a hat and apron too. The best was yet to come yet. They were wearing just going to eat pizza. They were going to make it too. Everyone will get the piece of pizza dough roll out and pizza, especially the girl's mother. There were many little lumps of dough. But first, let's play some games, she said. Everyone went into the living room to play pin the pepperoni on the pizza. Everyone, that is except for George. He was curious about what those pieces of dough. George thought, and lots of little pieces of dough were together. Maybe one huge and one would even be better. He gathered the lumps of dough together, squashed them until they became the very biggest piece of dough we ever seen. What fun! Maybe rolling it out. Maybe more fun. George poured the flour on the table. As he rolled the dough with a rolling pin. It was a messy work. First he bumped over the chairs. Then he knocked it over the sack of flour. Pump. The flour looked signs lying on the floor of the kitchen. George liked snow, though he didn't mind at all. Soon he had gotten dough nice and thin. But the thinner he got, the further it spread out. Before he knew it, the dough covered the table, then the chairs, then George. Without the flour, it started to stick and everything, including George. George stopped to think. Maybe the dough was better off in the small pieces after all. George got a pair of scissors and began cutting up the dough into lots of different shapes. He thought everyone would be pleased. George, what have you done to the kitchen? The little girl's mother looked in very happy. I think it's time for you to go home now. How surprised sad George was. Just then, George burst into the kitchen, saw the mess of George had made. George, what happened? Asked one boy. The other children looked at the shapes of George had made with wide eyes. Wow, George, I'd never seen pizza dough like that before, said the little girl, smiling. Well, says the mother, you can't clean up this mess quickly, George. I suppose you still have to make a pizza. Once the kitchen was clean, the real fun began. All the children picked up the perfect pieces of dough and got to work. They spooned on tomato sauce and sprinkled on cheese, and then added lots of vegetables and pepperoni. For the second time that day, George was so happy that he turned flips and stood on his head. Of course, it was a little hard to turn flips with so much pizza in his belly, but George didn't mind. It had been a wonderful pizza party.